today I'm going to talk about the Renters' Rights Bill, where we're at and what we can expect and the timeline of that. Some of those provisions of the bill may start immediately. Most provisions will need a commencement order. 12 key provisions. Number one, which is a really big one, I think, for me. So what does it mean for you? Tenants, you get more stable and more security and no more sudden evictions. But for landlords, the impact here is, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, it is that casual landlords will definitely be squeezed out, avoiding the compliance, flying under the radar for taxman. It won't fly anymore. The consequences of that is people that have bad credit, they are all going to be very, very vulnerable in terms of trying to find rental accommodation. Ultimately, there's going to be big changes. My advice, smart moves for savvy landlords.
Building wealth through property isn't about chasing big deals and paydays. It's about owning assets that make money for you consistently. But figuring it all out on your own, that's where most people get stuck. That's why we created this Property Life membership. It's everything we wish we had when we started. Expert guidance, real-world case studies, and a private community of investors actually doing deals, not just talking about them. So you could spend years trying to piece it all together yourself, or you could plug into a system that's already working for our community. Check out our membership page at This Property Life. Everything you need to know is right there. Success is a team sport. Come join in.
Welcome to This Property Life podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Blaney, and today I'm going to talk about the Renters' Rights Bill, where we're at and what we can expect and the timeline of that. We have gone through the third hearing at the Lords, House of Lords, and we are expecting Royal Assent in the late autumn. Heads up before we start the show. This Property Life is more than just a brilliant podcast. We are also a thriving network community. We meet online every single week with different property experts and in real life every single quarter to share war stories and insider tips. And the best bit is you can get this absolutely free for 2 months. So head to the link in the description and start networking smart. So basically what Royal Assent means is that the Renters' Rights Bill has been wrapped up to the key stages and we are in the recess for Parliament, and as soon as the summer has happened, it will then go to Royal Assent, which basically means it's formal approval by the monarch to turn a bill into law. So bottom line, Renters' Rights Bill is not law yet, but Royal Assent is anticipated this autumn, around September or October. As soon as Royal Assent is given, it can be turned into law. Some of those provisions of the bill may start immediately. Most provisions will need a commencement order, which is a separate piece of legislation by the Secretary of State. It actually brings all of the rights into force. They may even have a stage of this. So because there is some infrastructure involved in the key provisions of the Renters' Rights Bill, it may be that we see a stage around those commencements. So essentially what we're looking at for the Renters' Rights Bill is, as my previous podcast with the wonderful Suzanne Smith from the Independent Landlord. If you haven't checked that one out, please go to YouTube, dive into the Renters' Rights Bill. I'm not going to go in depth today, but I'm going to give a bit of a comprehensive breakdown of some of the provisions. And these are, as given by Suzanne, who's a great source of information on all of this sort of stuff. Okay, so 12 key provisions. Number one is, which is a really big one, I think, for me, it's the end of the fixed-term tenancy. At the moment, we have a 6-month AST, and basically tenants are locked in for 6 months, as are we locked in for 6 months, unless by mutual agreement. That's been scrapped and everything was going to convert to a periodic tenancy. So as of the commencement date, your current AST with any tenants is ripped up. You need a new one, and you must do that because there will be fines of, I think, about 7,000 if you don't get onto the new AST with immediate effect of the commencement date. What it means is that your tenant can sign an AST with you on day one and also give notice on day one, and 2 months later they could move out. Now, the reality of them doing that is quite low. And in all honesty, if someone doesn't want to stay, you want them out in any case, because it's going to be far easier to get someone out if they want to go than it is to go through the courts if they've stopped paying, etc. So people who might want to come over for work, or they're in a certain area for whatever it is, study, etc., and they want to circumnavigate the HMO market, take on a short stay rental within your long-term rental. Now, the way around that obviously is that you're not going to provide furniture. So there are landlords out there, and I'm one myself, who some of my portfolio is part furnished because it suited the market demand at the time. And if I kept that part furnished when my current tenants move out, who've actually been there for years in the one I'm thinking of, if I kept it part furnished, that might inadvertently become a short stay property, because it would be very easy for someone to come in day one, give notice, leave 2 months later. And I might get into trouble from the council, thinking that I've suddenly turned it into a short stay let. My mortgage provider might also be a bit unhappy with me, where all I've actually done is just provided a bit of furniture, and tenants have gone through the loophole and decided that they're going to use it as a short stay. The way around this, obviously, is that you would take any furniture out and you would only give properties in vacant, unfurnished status. So yes, it is going to be an issue for some people, especially if they are in areas where short stay is in demand. That's either holiday or working or student sort of areas. So that will be something that will be a problem. Students will also be a problem. So at the moment, a lot of student rentals will run on a potential 9 month with half rent over the summer. Some run for a 12-month period. But, a lot of university students come April, they have finished their exams and all of them want to stay on in their student town or student city. And I've had this on my student HMOs before, where they'll ask to leave early. Suits them, I can do that. But under these new rules, where it's periodic tenancies, they can actually give notice regardless. So the fixed term that you used to have with your students in your HMO rooms or your single lets is no longer. So I think there's a big high impact for any student HMO landlords. So yes, it's going to be a big impact. We're going to have to see how the market reacts. There's always someone who comes up with different ways around things, and then we can all learn from each other. But yeah, at the moment, number one, end of fixed term tenancies, quite a high impact. Number two, high impact, no fault evictions ban. So section 21 will be gone, and you must use section 8, as we know it now, court backed grounds for repossession. This could be the fact that they're not paying, that there might be antisocial behaviour, and the house may be unfit for purpose, and you need to refurb, therefore you need to get them out. Lots of different provisions around the section 8 evictions. But at the moment, section 21 will be going. Historical legacy section 21s before the commencement date, I believe, will be allowed to go through. So if you are looking to do a section 21, get it done immediately. And please use a good, proper lawyer. It will pay you to use someone who knows the court system inside out. I know this from having used an absolute awful eviction specialist, very well known in the market, who absolutely screwed us over on an eviction. But anyway, that's another story. So section 21 will be gone. Get that done now if you need to. After the commencement date, section 21 will be no longer. And to get someone out, you will need to follow the new set of section 8 rules. I don't know how this one's going to go. The NRLA are sort of suggesting that court eviction times are about 32 weeks. That is a very long time for you to have to go through this process of getting your tenants out if you need to sell, or they're not paying or anything like that. They're going to have to tighten up that, because otherwise I think it's going to be, if it's a terrible situation for landlords, they exit the market and it becomes a terrible situation for tenants. So that one, they're going to have to really tighten up, I think, our court processes. Number 3, rent increase controls, quite low impact. You're only allowed to increase once a year at the moment anyway. I always do mine by section 13, and tenants can contest them. The biggest change here is that at the moment, if you put through a section 13 and it's way out of kilter with market rent, the tenant can contest it. It can go to a tribunal. That's all happening right now at the moment in any case. The one difference is that if the tribunal comes up with a new figure or backs what the tenant's saying, if the tribunal comes up with a new figure or backs up what you're saying, you can't backdate the rent to the time of the Section 13. It's just going to go from the time that the tribunal makes its decision. Whereas at the moment, the Section 13 would be, the date of that would be when you can go for backdated rent, even though it may have taken a year to get to the tribunal decision notice. No bidding wars is number 4. It's low impact. Most people don't do bidding wars. They just look at the market, say what the rent value is going to be. I've never allowed tenants to do a bidding war, really. I don't really like that sort of thing. But, it's an impact nonetheless. Number 5, pet request rights. Tenants can ask to have pets at the moment, just really making it a bit of a stronger case that they can request pets. But nothing really changes for me on this one. You can still refuse for good reason. And good reason could be that, for example, for one of mine, I have a multi-unit block which has a shared courtyard. And I might say, look, we're not going to have pets in this shared multi-unit block because there's too many different parties and we don't know the size of the pets, very scared of dogs, etc. So I can refuse on that good reason. Equally, and I think this is one that myself and Suzanne spoke about, if someone's out at work all day and they've got 2 huge dogs that need a lot of exercise, you can also refuse for that sort of reason. I think that one we're going to wait and just see how that pans out. But it's not major difference to how we are at the moment. Number 6, written tenancy terms. So most people do this anyway. We have ASTs written out. And if you don't, you're really not protecting yourself, if you do want to go through evictions anyway. But again, that's going to be required. Most people do that in any case. All I would say is that you will now need to be on the new AST as of the commencement date, which we're expecting that will be late 25, early 26. Number 8, anti-discrimination rules. This, we have not been able to do a refusal based on social benefits, families, etc., etc. So again, all of these things are just a tightening up of where we are already. So for me, that's low impact. Number 9, stricter penalties for illegal evictions, harassment. This is one of those where it is a bit of a high impact, and it ties in with number 10, which is there is going to be a landlords database for the private rented sector, the PRS, and will be set up to boost transparency and accountability. It's going to cost us to be part of this database. I think it's a good thing, but there's quite a lot of accidental landlords out there who may have moved in with partners, their house becomes vacant and they rent it out. Those people, I think, are going to be exiting the market because of all of these changes, but also because of this database. Once you become part of a database, which if you do not become part of this database, you won't be able to list on Rightmove, on Zoopla. Most letting agents, there's always a few rogues. Most letting agents won't let you advertise your property with them if you're not going to be on this new landlords database. And the effect of that for the accidental landlord is they might go, this is all just too hard, and they're going to exit the market. They'll exit it for a few reasons. One, it will cost them. We don't know the cost yet. Generally, these things are about £500, £1,000 from my prior experience of different selective licensing databases that I had to be on. So there's the cost. But equally, once you're on a database, then you are now out in the open as a landlord. Now, you as a accidental landlord may not have told your mortgage company that you're letting the house out. And if you haven't, then that is mortgage fraud. You're not using the right product, and they may call the mortgage in. You may not be putting it onto your self-assessment tax return. So the taxman doesn't know. And as soon as you become part of this database, the taxman will know. Your mortgage company has an interest in the property, and they may be going, well, hang about, you're still on residential. Your insurance company might be going, excuse me, you need buy-to-let insurance, not just household insurance and house insurance as you had before. So I think that there is going to be a consequence on the PRS database, because I think people will exit even more than they have been over all of the tax changes that we've seen over the recent years. Of course, that's opportunity for landlords who want to do it properly. It will be a consequence for those landlords exiting. It always is a consequence for tenants because we are manipulating the market and reducing supply. Demand's going up, supply's going down. Tenancy rents will be going up. So I think that is definitely a big consequence. Number 10, high impact. There's a decent home standards that will be coming in. And, I think any good landlord wants their property to be in good, and we want to have repairs reported to us so that we can do something about it. So for me, it's high impact for those that aren't doing it, but it's low impact for those who are actually operating as professional landlords in any case. And there will be lots of stronger enforcement around all of this, including fines and lots of powers for local authorities. That's going to cause a few headlines, but if you are a decent landlord, that bit is not too much. So when does all this kick in? As I said, Royal Assent is expected in the autumn of 25. As soon as that commencement date comes in, there will be a no-fault eviction ban that will go. The tenancy type will be an immediate, pet requests, all that sort of stuff. I think then it will probably be that we have provision and rollout of the stages. So in 2026 and beyond, you can expect to see the database come into operation and the standards. So what does it mean for you? Okay, so tenants, you get more stable and more security and no more sudden evictions. To be honest, not many people go under the sudden eviction thing. A media headline that landlords are evicting people left, right and centre. At the end of the day, landlords want tenants, and tenants, that want to rent need a landlord. So I think, there's often this vilified relationship, and it's just not true. But there is obviously more stability, more security for the tenants. Transparency and fair notice, to be fair, I think we've had that already. The tenants have got that. And there are obviously some new rights, which I think are just being strengthened. We've already got them. But for landlords, the impact here is, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this, it is that casual landlords will definitely be squeezed out, avoiding the compliance, flying under the radar of the tax man, flying under the radar of their mortgage provider, that sort of thing, it won't fly anymore. So I think definitely that those provisions that are being put through the Renters' Rights Bill will definitely mean that casual landlords are out. I think in the short term, evictions, I don't know how it's going to work. I think we're already stretched in our court system and the costs are sky high. I think tenant selection is going to be so important. So the consequences of that is that, people that have bad credit, people coming from overseas that don't have potential English home owning guarantors, people who, might be coming out of a marriage and don't have that sort of history of either working or having a good credit history, they are all going to be very, very vulnerable in terms of trying to find rental accommodation. That's the consequence. That is, supply and demand. When we've got casual landlords being squeezed out, professional landlords maybe moving from ASTs to social housing and, the new supported living thing that everyone is loving at the moment. Private rentals system and our private rental sector is being squeezed. And because that supply has gone down and demand is just growing and growing, those on the fringes are always the ones that will suffer. So there are going to be some definite consequences for people, especially now that we are not allowed to do advanced rent. So if you had an overseas candidate or you had someone who had a bad credit history, we were allowed to potentially get 6 months rent in advance. That's not going to fly anymore. And who that hurts are the people that really needed it. So we'll see how that goes. With supply and demand, you can now pick and choose probably your tenant type a little bit more, depending on the area that you're operating in. And for sure, there's going to be higher costs and lots more complexity for us in terms of, having to pay for the database, looking potentially at bigger insurances of rent protection, looking at tighter vetting, which might mean your void periods are a little bit longer, and then having real bulletproof documentation. So just make sure that your letting agents, if you use them, are absolutely shit hot on this, because it's really important. I've actually just taken a lot of my buy-to-let rentals back in-house, and which means that I'm going to be responsible, along with my assistant, to make sure that that is all being absolute watertight. My documentation is all really, really good. So, ultimately, there's going to be big changes. Is it the worst thing in the world? No, nothing ever is. It will be okay for those landlords who operate in a professional way. So my advice, smart moves for savvy landlords: get professional, up your processes, get your systems into place, vet your tenants thoroughly. Detailed records are absolutely thorough, that you need them, and get compliant now, not later. We really need good communication with our tenants at all times. So when you're in that transition process, once the commencement date has come through, clear communication to your tenants that this is what's happening and this is what it means for them. And then, if you've got a good relationship with your tenants, then hopefully, you can just transition very smoothly onto this, and any new tenants coming through, they'll know what the system's going to be. But, ultimately, I think it separates the serious landlords from the casual operators. Are you going to operate casually? And if you are, I think, honestly, it's time to step back out of the market. But are you ready to be professional? So I think that this is a great opportunity for those of us who are in this for the long haul. Bottom line, serious landlords will stay in the game. Make sure you're one of them. And if you're not, let us know where you're selling. And I'm sure there'll be a few landlords from this Property Life network who might want to take your property off your hands. So hopefully that's given a little bit of a understanding as to just some of the overview of the Renters' Rights Bill, when it's expected. As this changes and as we get more information, we will of course keep you updated, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you are becoming one of the first to know about all the different changes that are going to come in over the next few months. And we look forward to bringing you all the news on another episode soon.